background?
My father grew up, well, he was born in Alabama, and I don't know the whole backstory, but he met my mom in New York. So he grew up, it was him and his brother, his mom, my grandmother only had two children. So he was a hard worker. My father was a hard worker in New York, and I don't know how he met up or got to know a lot about the Yoruba religion, but he was a drummer. He was a drummer with the Last Poets in New York in the 60s and 70s. And so I think his drumming got him hooked up with some people who taught him how to play what you call bata drums. Bata drums are usually played in what they call bembes, which are like big parties in the Yoruba religion, and they usually have bembes when people are made priests or priestesses in the Yoruba religion. So I think with my father being a drummer, that's how he got to know a lot about the Yoruba religion. I'm sorry, and he was made a priest in the Yoruba religion. He was a priest for quite a few years, and we ended up moving to Goldsboro, North Carolina with my mom, and so he couldn't practice with my grandmother. I'm sorry, he couldn't practice a lot of what he used to practice in New York with the religion because my grandmother was not having it in her house. But me and my mom both, before we left New York, were planning on becoming priestesses in the Yoruba religion, but we never did. But my father was deep in it. He was studying it very hard. He had a lot of books that he translated, a book about the Yoruba religion that was in Yoruba, in the Yoruba language. He had a lot of books where he was translating that book. And he ended up passing away before he even finished that book. Well, in Goldsboro, North Carolina, there was nobody. In North Carolina alone, where we were, there was no one who was practicing the Yoruba religion. And to become a priest or priestess in that religion, it costs money, a lot of money. So we would have had to have saved it. But once we moved to North Carolina and my dad was not able to practice anything dealing with the Yoruba religion, of course in my grandmother's house, but there was no people here or in Goldsboro that he could connect with to do anything dealing with it. So we kind of let it go once we moved to North Carolina.
But he didn't let it go.
No, he did not. So he still practiced. Some of the things, what we call the soup tureens and stuff that he had that were representative of the gods that are with the Yoruba religion. He still had some of those that he had to keep hidden in my grandmother's house. But he still practiced. If we ever went to New York, he still played at bembes and things like that. But once he passed, there is a ceremony that you go through for a priest or priestess in the Yoruba religion. So all that stuff was taken back to New York, and they did whatever ceremony they did with those soup tureens, everything, when he passed.
No.
In the Yoruba religion, there are different gods. You have, example, Yemanya, Ogun, Oshun, and you're usually made a priest or priestess. You have what you call a godmother or godfather that lets you know what God represents you as looking after you. And you're made a priest or priestess with that God. My father was made priest, but his God or his, what do you call them? Not angel. Orisha. His Orisha was Shango. So he was made a priest, a Shango priest. And sometimes at bembes, he would be drumming, but you see people dancing. And then a lot of times that dancing will bring on the possession of that certain god, Oshun, Shango, whatever. And because you're doing the dances for that Orisha, you might get possessed with that. And a lot of times I saw my father, and as a little girl, I was scared. It frightened me because I didn't know what was going on. But as I got older, I understood, and it didn't scare me anymore.
So it's a form of worship.
Yes. The dances were a form of worship to those Orishas, and then that's when the possession would take place.
Now, right.
I hear there are. I don't know of any, but I hear that there are. I think over the years, the religion has changed quite a bit. Yeah, so I don't know of any in the area. I know there may be some, but I have not seen or heard of any in the area. Now, in the African dance community that me and my husband are involved with, we know there are some priests or priestesses that are in the African dance community, where if they practice and have been bathed and do the initiations, which is what we call when you become a priest or priestess, it's an initiation. I don't know if they're still doing that or not, because I'm not in that community anymore.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think now people need to know that it's not just a fad, that it's something serious. A lot of people, and I know the old school priests and priestesses are very serious about their religion. They're very serious about the practices that go along with it. So my thing is, you have to be serious and have knowledge. You have to have the knowledge. And the only way to get the knowledge, I believe, is to talk to those old school priests or priestesses who came up in the 60s, 70s, 80s and practiced then, so that you know the true knowledge of the Yoruba religion and what it entails.
One of the things that captured my fascination when I was studying, like in preparation to write the script, I was fascinated by he's a brother scholar. I read his dissertation, Tony Vandermeer. I think he lives in Boston. And he talked about the Yoruba religion being about healing the psyche of Black people. And I remember getting to that part in the dissertation, and I closed my computer. I highlighted it, and I closed my computer. And then I called a pastor friend of mine, a Christian pastor friend. And we talked for like over an hour.
Right.
About why I never hear Christian ministers talking about healing the psyche of Black people. Everybody wants to talk about saving the soul.
Right.
But the body and the memory, no one ever, let's let that go.
Right, right.
That's not how that works. But when I hear you talk about like what you experienced with your dad, it's worship, it's dance, it's drumming.
Right.
But it sounds like it was also study too.
Oh yeah, definitely studying. You definitely had to study. Like you were saying in the church, they tell you study your craft. If you're in dance, if you're a minister, whatever, you're supposed to study your craft. Same thing with that. You have to study. You have to study to know what you're getting into, study to know what you're doing, so that you don't fumble up or teach somebody a wrong way.
So the best way to know the truth about it is to find an old school priest or priestess.
Or someone who grew up in somebody that's Yoruba that grew up in Nigeria. They can tell you a lot about it. But yeah, the old school ones, yeah, they're the best ones to teach you the truth. Okay. And we have friends that are old school priests or priestesses, and they know the truth. They know the knowledge.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Collette. Anything else? Did I miss anything that you wanted to to offer?
No,
Listen,
that's it.
because Bobby told me a story about he mishandled the ashes.
Yes.
And he ain't do that again.
No, he touched one of the soup tureens that my dad had in the house. This was when I think Ma was moving or something, touched him. He was like, oh no. He felt something when he touched it. He was like, He said, I remember him shaking his hand. He said, no. So he didn't mess with it anymore. Yes,
but look, put some respect on it.
Exactly. Yeah, and you were talking about healing the psyche. You know, a lot of churches don't. But to me, it depends on what church you're at. Yeah. The one we were at in Goldsboro, that's what they taught, healing the psyche. Okay. You got to.
That's good.
Because if you don't heal that, how's the rest of your body going to be healed?
Thank you for correcting me on the fact that there are churches that do talk about and actively engage in like practices for healing the psyche.
But you gotta search for those ones that you gotta search.
Yeah, I guess you just gotta search for whatever. Like none of it is gonna come easily.
That's right.
But what you search for, like, may we be, when we seek, may we find.
That's right.
Yeah.
Seek and you shall find. That's it.
There it is.
That's it.
There it is.